today we're going to be talking about documentation, which everybody thinks is a lot of fun, right? All right. So one of the things that I noticed working for quite a few different companies was that everyone had different documentation. None of them had the same ideas what a red team was or a pen test team was. All of them had to start from scratch basically when you started a red team or were on any kind of pen test team. When I worked at Rapid7, we did things our way, and when I worked at GE, we did things our way. And it just honestly got really annoying to recreate documentation every single time about basically the same stuff, just different ways. So I created the open source pen test red team documentation. And I didn't do this alone. I stole it from a lot of other people who do really cool things. A lot of you see your names up here. And the reason why I took some of these ideas and tried to make them public is that I really want us to start doing things more regular, I guess, in a way that can be repeated. And when me as an organization, I go and say, hey, I am company X, I want to have a pen test, I can then say, I want a pen test this way, or that way, or I want to do it in a way that benefits me the most. And year to year to year to year, one of the things that I noticed when I worked for a company that we had the same client for multiple years in a row was that they asked me for something that I couldn't provide them. I had no way of providing them because we don't keep the documentation of a pen test longer than like 30 days or 60 days or whatever. And they wanted metrics for how they were doing year over year over year. And we agreed that you don't want us to keep that information. And that came to be a discussion that really boiled down into what actually metrics and that kind of information looks like over time. And the talk just right before me actually did a pretty good job of doing that. I won't have to define pen testing for you. You kind of know what this is. It's mostly going after the prevention piece, red teaming, prevention, detection, and response, blah, blah, blah. So the rest of the document, this is for clients, for you to take this pitch and give it to you from the internal red team or internal pen test team to give it to your customers or partners. Or you as a first time starting out as a new firm, pen test team, red team, and saying, I know how to pen test, I know how to red team, but I don't know how to talk to a client or give different offerings or what we should offer. So one of the things that I learned at GE actually was that verbiage is really important. And it took me a while actually until I left to really understand how that was useful. When you call them customers or clients, there's a certain understanding that goes with that. In at least English, I don't know how it is in other languages, but customers and clients, they get a certain feeling about how you're supposed to interact with them, more like a used car salesman type scenario than an actual partnership. And that's what really red teaming and pen testing need to be. So we call them partners. That way we're not adversaries. So if you call them clients or customers, it really sets that into in a bad light. So some of the, why is that? That is incorrectly put. So some of the documentation that I released was an NDA. And this NDA was created over a long period of time to really focus on security and what a pen test and red team NDA should look like, and how much you're giving away versus not. For example, one of the stories that went into creating this NDA was I had a test that I did a long time ago that we found a vulnerability in a web app. Sort of like WordPress, it was a CMS. And this vulnerability was really critical. And we found it in a customer. And we're like, hey, customer, we found this. We want to report it. And they're like, no, in your NDA, you can't do anything with this. We don't want this going public or anything. And we're like, but like 500,000 people use this too. What if someone else finds it? And we weren't allowed to release it. And let's just say stuff in the public happened, and then it got released anyways, but we didn't do it. No, so the NDA is part of that focuses around vulnerabilities and disclosure of vulnerabilities and stuff like that. The statement of work is a boiled down statement of work. A lot of the times that I've seen statements of work from pen test companies, it's been everything all in one, and so we remove that so that it can be more dynamic. The rules of engagement, deliverables request. The deliverables request is actually an interesting one that I don't see too often. It's basically an agreement between you and the partner that says, I will give this to you by X date. Most of the times that's the report, right? Almost every pen test company has we'll give you the report in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 10 weeks, whatever. But this deliverables request actually has requirements for the partner. It says, if you don't give us the IP range by X time, pen test is off. We still get paid, right? Now, it's not as drastic as that, but it's basically the gist of it. And so during engagement, communications agreement. How many in the room are pen testers? Raise your hand. Red teamers, pen testers, adversarial types. Okay, so not that many. Okay, keep your hands raised for a second. Drop your hand if you have never, ever had a customer who wanted to contact you daily. Hands still raised. Weird. How about hourly? Most hands dropped. Okay. I actually had a customer that did this. He was a prior pen tester, which is the best kind of partner. And he wanted to know everything about every single attack we ever did. Even when we were at lunch, he would call. And that's where this document came out of, that particular person. And so having an arrangement on how often you're going to talk to each other, setting that expectation way ahead of time is really important, and setting rules for what happens if that changes. So you're listening? Congratulations. Thank you. That's awesome. Can't beat that. Someone who's actually listening, I feel, So the results rubric, I'll go into that more in detail later. That's actually really important. That's where we start talking about metrics and something repeatable that you can look at. And then the end of engagement report. The end of engagement report is really important because it's not your standard 40-page report. I have no idea where that came from. Like, whoever created the pen test report and like had the 40 pages come out of somewhere, I want to strangle them. I don't like writing that much, and I have a hard time making even, and as someone in the room can attest, even a page. So 40 pages is really tough for me. All right, so why? It's because the scenarios listed, prevention, blah, 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 blah. Let's just go through. So this is for customer stuff so that you can explain to them. One of the big topics that have been out there for a while is DA should not be the target of your pen test. Well, some customers actually want domain admin as the target. and that's your time to talk to them and show them that domain admin is not the end of the world, and it shouldn't be. If your organization, and most of you in this room probably have this problem, if your organization dies, if someone gets domain admin, that's something that you don't need a red team or pentest to solve. You just need to tell them, don't let that happen, right? Figure out other solutions, like having single sign-on or having two-factor authentication, or restricting to domain admins to only logging into domain controllers and stuff like that. There's a lot of solutions out there that are simpler than if you get DA, you get everything. So goals on that line should be focused on what actually affects the business and can get your organizations better. Communication timeline. This is an actual timeline of a communication agreement that we had. This showed dates and times. Well, it showed times on the next page, but where agreements could happen. So pre-engagement deliverables due by. The engagement does not start if that yellow block does not get met. Start of engagement, unscheduled outage. So anytime an unscheduled outage happens, we would mark it and have it as part of the report and whatever happened because of that. So even if it wasn't our fault, which most of the time it isn't, if that unscheduled outage happened, a communication has to happen saying, hey, customer or partner, hey, pen tester, we've had an unscheduled outage. I want you to do full stop because we need to deal with this, or was this you, or anything like that. And then the non-engagement related intrusion detected. Like I said, this is an actual timeline. So one of the partners I had 2 intrusions, different intrusions, while our pen test was going on, and they said full stop. And then the end of engagement. So one of the bad things about having a adversarial mindset when it comes to blue teams and red teams is that sometimes when this happens, when an actual intrusion happens during a red team or during a pen test, the blue teamers can sometimes think that it's the red team and just put it off to the side. And that's a real danger that more communication and setting expectations can handle. So pre-engagement, I just went over all of that. Yep, all right. So all of these are actually all open source, basically. They're at the links, open source pentest, open source NDA, open source blah, blah, blah. And I think I went over all of these. So it's the cost and scenario and the SOW. I'm actually working on making this into a web app that makes it really easy to just couple all this stuff together and press go. But I suck at coding, so if anyone wants to help with that, it's all open source. Here's the ROE. Rules of engagement, stopping points, limits to the engagement, exclusion lists, fragile systems, and so on. List of partner engagement deliverables, timeline. I really just want to get to the point where I'm talking about different engagement types. So, the rubric. So the rubric is an interesting twist to red teams and pen tests. The rubric is actually so my kids are in school and I get rubrics for everything these days, even attendance and stuff. So one of the rubrics that I created was for, I created with the help of Adam Ocello, is essentially a guideline of scoring for a test, for a pen test. And you give this to the blue team ahead of time. You say, here, customer, partner, blue team, CSO, whoever you are, here's the rubric that I want you to grade yourself on before the test even starts. And then during the test, the red team starts scoring it. And I think I have a picture in here. Nope, not yet. And so the Rubric has different metrics on if you saw AV, was AV effective? And that scoring is based on just observable points. So if the AV was non-observed, like it didn't even exist, the red team marks it as non-observed. But if the blue team or test team or the partner says, we definitely have AV and it's the best on the planet, green, or 5, or whatever the rubric is, then you marry that up at the end and really find out how that works out, and you get to give the customer something they can actually have action on when it comes to detection. So the EER is, again, the end of engagement report, and it has the attack narrative diagram, it has findings, remediation steps. One of the other things that I started adding was prevention and detection opportunities. So in the actual report, you say, you could have caught me here. I messed up here. I logged in 500 times to here and then finally got a username and password. Very rarely have I ever seen this in an actual pen test report where you say, sometimes you'll have finding, bad password, spring 2018, bang, on 17 different users. But I don't think I've ever seen a pen test report that says, you could have detected me spraying the entire organization for spring 2017 at this time and date. So they can look it up. And then cleanup items. I doubt if I asked everyone who was a pen tester to raise their hands again, how many of you guys would actually keep your hands raised and says, I cleaned up everything all the time, for every test I've ever done. Every binary, every log was all cleaned up. Yep, we have liars in the group. Good red teamers. Common fears, this is where we talk to the customer or partners about all possible precautions. We're not going to take down your systems. I think nearly every single communication I've had with a partner is like, especially when they're new to red teaming or pen testing or having that done to their organization. So you're not going to take our stuff down. You're not going to do DDoSes or that meltdown stuff, right? You're not going to destroy our systems. No, we want you to stay online as much as possible so our C2 works. Oh, come on, that was funny. Physical damages. I actually had a customer one time, or partner, sorry, I still do it, talk to me about the damage of lockpicking. They heard on the news that lockpicking damages keyholes. And they were right, it does. But usually so minutely that it doesn't matter. But they were so worried about us trying to lockpick one of their locks that they removed it from the engagement. And our goal was to get into a room that had a lock. So we kicked it. We got in. It damaged the door. But that was not part of the physical damages part. Their mistake. So pentest execution standard is really a great methodology. I have nothing to add to this. If you go down through their methodology, especially their timeline is really great to follow. You should definitely check it out. And scenarios, this is the fun part. This is where I get to talk about opportunistic attacker. This is anti-red team, anti-pen testing. And I've only gotten to do this type of engagement a few times, but it's a lot of fun. It's like going back to the 90s and saying, I get to pen test again, download Angry IP Scanner and go, push go, and nmap all the things and download every tool off the on the planet. Cain and Abel, you guys remember that? Anybody? Am I just old? Cain and Abel, okay. So does anyone know what able is. What is able? Password cracker. No, k̒̒n is the password cracker. What is able? Geek trivia. K̒̒n and able are different things. It's the agent, right? So the agent, if you upload it to VirusTotal today, has 0 detections. It's awesome. So it's the agent. So downloading k̒̒n and able, running that, throwing it on systems, being as loud as you can. So what this opportunistic attacker is for is to see how well they detect loud. And you'd be surprised that many of the more advanced organizations have stopped being able to detect loud. It's weird. They start looking at APT and all the crazy, advanced stuff with squibbly-doo and all the weird names that have come out. And you download k̒̒n and able and they're like, eh. And then you run k̒̒n and able against their entire organization, dropping passwords and stuff. And they're like, eh. But. Anyways. So this is really important to still do, and is widely effective for some weird reason. So this is the information exchange from client, pre-engagement, post-client. The next one to talk about is external with credentials. This one used to be not an engagement that was well received. Everyone's like, how are you going to get the credentials? Now with all the breaches, recently, that was probably not PC, but it's a lot easier to have that conversation. Now I can't talk because I'm too embarrassed. So with the external with credentials, the interesting part about this is having credentials should not externally lead you to code execution, should not externally lead you to access to corporate data. And taking organizations and showing them that it can, or showing them that one web app way off to the side that they totally forgot about is accessible, is really useful to organizations, and it pays really well on bug bounties. Anyways. So remote VPN, remote access, email interfaces. Anyone ever heard of SensePost's tool called Ruler? Anybody? Well, if you're in my class, we get to play with it. So Ruler is a really wonderful tool that was based on some other research, but basically it adds a rule to Outlook. And that rule says, run this binary, this application. And you can send an email to that person, and it runs that binary on the system that they have running Outlook. So with an email and some passwords, I can get code execution in your organization without sending a single phishing email. All I have to do is send them an email with anything I want in it. It doesn't even have to have a binary in it. So that's fun. Microsoft kind of patched it with some updates that made it so that a registry key has to be turned. So external interfaces like Office 365. Anyone ever use Office 365? Yeah, it's fun. You know what's more fun about it? It's external. A lot of organizations stop, for some reason, they have this blinders on when it comes to, well, it's our cloud, and don't understand that it's my cloud too as a red teamer, right? Anyways, fun stuff. So there's the goals, and it's there to prevent and detect where you can log in. So another fun engagement is stolen laptop and stolen mobile device. Now this is an interesting one too, and I've gotten to do it a lot more recently. But what happens if someone steals a device at your organization. What's the common thing that happens when a device, like bring your own device or laptop, is stolen? The user gets a new one, right? That's the policy. That's pretty much what happens. Well, does anyone actually look at authentication attempts after that happens? Or look at any VPN access that happens after that? Or deprovs the user, or gives them a new user, or sets the encryption key something different, or says, do you have LastPass or 1Password or any of those things? Was it logged in at the time? So this engagement actually does all of those things. This engagement says, you're gonna give us a laptop. It's gonna be a valid user that can get on VPN, it can get on whatever, and initially it's gonna be locked. So we're gonna try everything we can with it locked and say, okay, do you have hard drive encryption? Do you have encryption or containerization on your mobile device? And then you're gonna give us a password, and we're gonna log into it and see what we can do from there. Can we get direct access with no password to the VPN, or without 2FA? Or I've actually pen tested an organization where the only thing that required to get onto their corporate wireless was a certificate that was on the system. So any laptop stolen at any time, and they never changed the CA or revoked the certs, could get onto the wireless. So this engagement's kind of an eye-opener for people a lot of times, to show them our policies and procedures around stolen laptops or stolen mobile devices need to change. Need to say, they might not. Now, most of the time they're just after the device or gear, and they wipe it and do that, but they might not be. 2FA, detection response, blah, blah, blah. Breach simulation, yay! So how many of you in here have done a breach simulation? What this means, if you don't have this word, if you don't use these words for it, is we don't want you to fish. We want you to just assume that you've gotten in. Yeah, a lot of people, right? So I'm okay with this type of engagement. However, it's done wrong so many times. Because I had a client or customer, partner, or whatever, that said, okay, we want to do a breach simulation, and what we're going to do is we're going to give you, you're going to get an account, and we'll put you on a system. You just give us a binary, and we do it. So I gave him the binary. We got a callback. The callback was from a VM in a new data center that had no other systems, was VLANed off from the rest of the network because they didn't want us attacking anything, and it was a local user. How many of you guys can go from there? If you can, you're hired. So, brand new VM, didn't have anything on it. It was the worst engagement ever. So we coach through what these things can be. And the best breach simulation that I've ever had was where the point of contact for the partner took a USB stick with our binary on it, went over to a random user, someone that was just in the office. He had just had lunch and went back and was on his way back up, went to some random user in the office and said, hey, I'm the CSO, can you run this for me real quick? We're doing some testing. Plugged it in, ran the thing, we had a shell, we confirmed with him over the phone, and he said, if anything weird happens, report it up to the security manager. And we're totally fine with that, that's awesome. So, took it out, we were on a real system, in a real part of the network, with a real user, as if we had really phished them. That's a breach simulation. So Test prevention layer, see if the antivirus catches it, or host intrusion prevention, blah, blah, blah. Again, this is for you to talk to your client or partner for. And then insider. This is hard as well. So opportunistic attacker is a difficult engagement for red teams to do. Insider, just as difficult. So the insider is a little sneakier, but still loud. They attempt to do things like downloading hacker tools or do large file transfers. Full physical access is required for these, whereas the opportunistic attacker, you can do it with a shell or something like RDP. A lot of overt scanning, a lot of egress busting to find out where it is. USB, pulling USBs, and that kind of stuff. So the mindset around this is that you have a disgruntled employee. So getting your red team to pretend to be a disgruntled employee is a little hard because none of them are disgruntled, right? We're all having fun. No, man, you guys are just not awake or something. Or these jokes suck. There we go. I don't care. So the entire thing about doing the insider is that you want to express to the organization that you are trying to be as sneaky as a sneaky non-sysadmin would be, right? So a good example of this was, I think 10 years ago now, there was a scientist at IBM that decided he wanted to take some formula, and it could be not IBM, it could be somewhere else, but they wanted to take some formula and they took it and went to the exact opposite organization to bring it into their company and sell it inside that company. And that was totally, what is the word for it? Corporate espionage. So that insider did this thing. Do you know how he did it? It was really fascinating when I read the article about how he did it. He put it on CDs at like 150 megabytes at a time. And this thing was like 16 gigs. And he'd take one out every day. I think they were also in like segmented zips or RARs even. So it was fun. So doing stuff like that, showing that type of exfiltration, especially with rewritable CDs, is a lot of fun. Insider goals, and I got the 10 minutes, so I'm going to go a little faster. The black box assessment, most of you already know how this works. It's zero knowledge, or at least low knowledge. A lot of social engineering. Physical, wireless, and rogue are normally added on. And add-ons. So when I talk about add-ons, these are things that are normally not full engagements, but they're just simply bolted on to other types of engagements, or sometimes done separately when time's a factor. So wireless, one of the things about wireless is that just cracking WPA or WEP isn't really the end-all be-all of it. Wireless extends way past just normal Wi-Fi. Zigbee is also in play. Bluetooth, not as much because there's not really much you can do with it other than OSINT. But really going around wireless stuff. Physical. This is also wireless stuff for Zigbee and Wi-Fi, but also RFID. And the big thing here is testing multiple locations. So if your partner says, we're going to do a physical, we want you to do a physical, and we want you to do this specific location, chances are that the security manager at that specific location knows exactly when you're coming. So having multiple locations in scope and saying, we're going to go to one of these during this week or 2 weeks is really important, mostly because I don't trust that you're not going to tell them. Get out of jail free card. You guys know what this is? No? So a get out of jail free card is essentially something you keep in your back pocket during a physical assessment where you can provide them and show them that it's valid that you're there, or that you should not shoot me because I have this reason to be here. The thing about this is that they can be faked, right? So there's a friend of mine who actually keeps on him during a physical engagement a fake get out of jail free card and a real get out of jail free card. And he provides the fake one first to see what they'll do. I'm not that brave. I don't want to get shot, so the fake one is not an option for me. Huh? Depends on the country? Yeah. You'll not get shot in Poland? All right, cool. Texas, different story. The on-site point of contact. One of the things I forgot to mention, and I'm still working on time, but and some people in the room are going to laugh at this and some won't. One of the really important things about the communication timeline is identifying times when your point of contact at the partner goes on vacation. If they go on vacation during an engagement, they are no longer your point of contact, especially during a physical. It's a bad time to not be available. And the thing that I don't see too often is local law enforcement communication. That's one of the things that I really am a proponent for. So on one specific physical engagement, I like to talk to the police department locally to say, hey, we're doing a physical assessment at this location. Here's our credentials. Here's where we work. Here's the rules of engagement that we have with them. Provide them all the information so they know we're legit, and so that we don't get shot by them. And we go to them, and on one specific engagement, the chief of police was so excited about me telling him this that he kept me on the phone for like an hour and a half, and he's like, my son's gonna get into InfoSec. What tools does he need to learn? And how many other things? Like, he started talking to me about everything, not about the actual engagement we were on. And it got me because at the end of the conversation, he's like, can I roll up in my squad car and just watch? No. 5 minutes. All right, cool. Egress testing. How many of you guys do egress testing during engagements, before engagements, after engagements? Yeah, so one of the things about egress testing is that you can do it at any time before or after engagements, and it's really useful to organizations. It really depends on the organization, though. Some partners allow everything outbound, Silicon Valley, or some people go through the proxy, some people don't, some people do cloud-based proxies or just regular firewalls. And I actually created a website called letmeoutofyour.net that I do egress testing to. And so it does every port, does it over HTTP, and it's verifiable. So it's really useful for organizations because you can do this at any point. So you give them a binary that just automatically does it, and it gives them a report, and then they have that binary forever, right? They can run it wherever. And it's really fun when they run it like in a DMZ, and they're like, nothing will get out of our DMZ except for port 80. And then they run it, and like 1521 is allowed in or out. Anyone know what 1521 is? A few Oracle DBAs are like, proud bunch. So identify C2, detection collaboration. Now, detection collaboration is what I used to call it, and now it has a new term, adversarial simulation testing. and it's the big rave these days, so I don't have to talk too much about it since I only have 1 minute-ish. All right, 3 minutes. So it detects the security layer. One of the cool things about adversarial simulation that not too many people talk about is the detectability of pipelines. So the crazy thing, now that I'm a blue teamer, that I've learned is that if you have, let's say that you have a sim. So you have ArcSight or whatever new sim is out there, right? And you have Splunk feeding into the sim, and then Snort feeding into Splunk, and then maybe weblogs feeding into Snort to Splunk to the sim. If one of those connections goes down for an hour, you're not seeing anything. And then all of your detection stops. Now, I didn't think that was something that happened normally. It does. It's amazing. And no one detects on it. There isn't a rule that says, why are my rules not working? When everything's green, it's good, right? Or when just half of your rules are working. Now, the cool thing about adversarial simulation is that you can run these things in an automated fashion and detect outages in your pipeline automatically, and it's great. I seriously had no idea that blue teamers had such a bad problem with like DevOps. It's crazy. And then C2 detection. So real quick through this. This is where you try different C2s, and I actually did this for an organization where I tried HTTPS, DNS, TCP, UDP, everything was blocked. They even detected Twitter C2, which is awesome. Tried Dropbox, still detected it. I actually went on the internet on Security Focus or Packet Storm, found an IRC bot that I kind of knew about and had seen before, and I used it. And it got through. So old school IRC bot wins over new school DNS backdoor or HTTPS. It's really funny. What is old is new again in a lot of ways. And then rogue device. How many of you done a rogue device? Taken a device like a Raspberry Pi or Intel NUC or small device, put it in an organization, in their conference room, of course, that's where everyone puts it. Put it in there, plugged it in. Huh? You put it in the CERT? Did you say you put it in the CERT? I'm so doing that. I'm going to put it right next to the blue teamers next time. That's going to be awesome. So now I can't even talk because this is so awesome. So rogue devices, how many of you put it in there and it stayed there for a week? A month? 3 months? I actually had to legally ask through a lawyer an organization to give us our device back because it was still active and our contract was done with them. I had asked multiple times before that, obviously. It wasn't just something that I'd left there on purpose. We just had no way of getting back to them. And then finally, the CXO breach training, where we teach C-level executives how to deal with breaches. It's not a common thing. Password auditing, tabletop scenarios, and vendor proving ground. The end, because I'm really late. Anyone have any questions? Went through a lot. I'm negative 2 minutes? Someone's lying. All right. Any quick questions?
And quick answers as well.
They can be long answers. No one. All right. Oh, upstairs. Way upstairs. Run. Nope. Wait till the mic. Wait for the mic.
No.
Wait for the mic. I can't hear you.
I think I don't need it, but okay. You mentioned that your client was detecting the Twitter and Facebook C2. How did they catch it?
Really fast. I don't think I can talk about that. I would have to ask, honestly. It was all custom, how they did it. All right, thank you very much.